Welcome back to Dr. Supercoach, and in this video I'll be discussing the Captain's Corner for the week coming right up. How's it going, everyone? It's JB from Dr. Supercoach, and if this is your first appointment here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like our video so you don't miss any upcoming updates. And now today's episode is the Captain's Corner again this week. As I'm trying to do every single week. I think I had a pretty good strike record last week. I did say Gordon against the Tigers would be a cheeky vice captaincy option, just the 88, but very unlucky last week. He had all the CBAs to take advantage, had a very hot start. I think he had 42 or something in the first quarter, and then tapered off late. But besides that, I think my hit rate was pretty good last week. This week I feel like it's going to be really difficult to fail because there are a lot of good matchups for our premiums. Now I'm going to start off with the very top game here, the Western Bulldogs versus Fremantle. I'll go game by game. Now obviously on the Western Bulldogs side we have Tim English, who is the most informed player in the competition. Now it's a little bit interesting. Tim English, if I can just look at his ruck run so far, I'm not quite sure if he's had a game against someone like Darcy. A very good tap ruckman is Darcy, so often dominates. So now Melbourne, obviously he would have come up against Gawn, who was a very good tap ruckman. St Kilda, Marshall's more of a tackler and spread type of guy. McInerney, a very good tap ruckman, and then Richmond and Port Adelaide, who are struggling a little bit in the ruck stocks at the moment. So look, I don't mind. I think an English VC at this point is pretty free. It is fairly easy to get your hands on a 120 plus at this point in time. Just form alone is probably going to take him there, but I don't know if he's got the big 140 plus against Sean Darcy. I could be wrong about that, but he's not my bet to go to score the highest this round. So I'm a little bit, I don't know. I haven't looked into the options this week at all, so I'll be learning along with you guys here. But again, on the Bulldogs side of things, we have Bontempelli coming off a big 140 plus score this week as well, against Fremantle in Perth. Look, I know they're a little bit battered at the moment this year, but it's really dependent on whether they put any attention into him, which I think they generally have done in the past. And I can see them doing it. I can see them not doing it as well. Again, I don't know if I want to spend my vice captaincy there quite yet, so we'll revisit that one. Port Adelaide versus West Coast. Port just don't have any captaincy options. I would even say someone like Rosie, maybe towards the end of the year in a showdown or something, might have captain viability, vice captain viability, but I'm not sure about this early in the season. He does seem like he's still trying to find his feet in that midfield role. Port have had a lot of tough games, so maybe he'll be a bit of a flat track bully, but I'm not going to risk that this week against West Coast, I don't think. And there's no one else in that team that I would vice captain either, so not at this point. GWS versus Brisbane. It was good to see Lachie Neale find form this week with a big 170 plus. That was excellent. He really finally put together a full complement of a game, which is excellent. The worry here that I'm having early straight away is that a lot of the VC options I think are going to play pretty late in the round, so you're going to have a late loophole. For GWS against Brisbane, look, I don't think there's a lot there. I don't mind the vice captaincy on Lachie Neale, but it's cogs. I mean, Perryman's not back. They're not really doing run with roles, GWS. I'm not quite sure how they've gone in the last couple of rounds against opposition midfields. So they just played Hawthorn. I mean, Warple got a ton against them, so use that information how you will. Essendon the week before. I don't think Parrot. I think that was a bad Parish game, was it? If I can flick back here, I don't know how to flick back on Fen Footy to go into the previous rounds. But yeah, I'm not quite sure if they're conceding big enough scores in the midfield at the moment, GWS. But I think Lachie Neale is going to be one of those players where he's real fixture proof. If you have him on a run of hot form, then back him in. Otherwise, there might be better options later on down the line. Now, Geelong, Sydney. I will not recommend Gordon for this one. There's a chance Tom Stewart gets off the chain, but my prediction is that Ryan Clark is going to come into this Sydney side and try to play a role as he did successfully in the past. So if that is the case, then I would avoid Tom Stewart as a vice captain. But without a recall for Ryan Clark, I really don't know who stops Tom Stewart in that team. It might be just a conscious effort from the entire side. I always tend to, even if the tagger themselves is not back in the squad, I tend to avoid teams who have been players who have been tagged by teams anyway in the past, because even if a tagger is unfit, I still feel like there's going to be a lot of work put in to sort of try to quell their influence, whether it's a direct tag or not. I still think something happens in that game to try and slow them down. So I don't love the Tom Stewart option this week, but I think moving forward we're going to be talking about him a lot, especially at GMHBA or at the MCG. Now, Adelaide versus Hawthorn, we have a genuine vice-captaincy option here. We have a couple, actually. This Hawthorn midfield is not amazing. They're not super restrictive, except one man, who we'll talk about in a second. Rory Laird, I really don't mind in this one, but I'm going to take you straight to the issue, the concern that I have. Laird and Dawson are both very, the big body, inside mid, contested ball. Dawson shows the class more so on the outside, whereas Laird shows the run, the spread, the dominance around the ground as well. So they're very similar in a lot of ways. I think Dawson is the guy that I would prefer to tag, but I'm not an AFL coach, as you know. So I'm not sure what does happen there, but Connor Nash did an incredible job on Tom Green this week. Now, is Tom Green more of a Dawson, or is he more of a Laird, or does he not need to be either? Does Nash just sort of, with his big body, just try and sit on anyone? Is he able to run with players on the outside? To be seen. A lot of it is to be seen. For that reason, I actually think this is a really risky captaincy game in terms of the tag, but I completely understand using your vice captaincy in this game on a Sunday. Meaning you would have to have like a constable, or there's a lot of loopholes that you could potentially have, but the main one, our R3, plays 4:05 or 4:35 for Victorian people on this Saturday. So if you are leaving it this late, make sure you do have a loophole. Alternatively, Carlton versus St Kilda. There's not a lot in this game that I enjoy either. Now, with the two defenders out for Carlton, I have noticed actually Carlton concede a lot of disposals to halfback flankers. If you're inclined to get Sinclair this week, I don't think he's a huge vice-captaincy shout. He's definitely not a captaincy shout, but I think he will score really well. Not sure why I'm throwing that out there, but I am. Gold Coast versus North Melbourne. This is a big one. Touk Miller. If you have Touk Miller, I think he's an incredible VC option still as well. I'm saying VC still because I really hope there's some sort of loophole from either of these two games, because Clayton Oliver, Nick Dacos are huge captaincy options. Really trustworthy guys. I think Touk Miller is actually a captaincy option as well. I'd be spending it before this Gold Coast game. If you have Touk Miller and you don't want to wait for Clary, or you don't have Clary, I think you can spend your VC earlier, probably like an English into Touk. Otherwise, I think it's going to be really popular to go English into Clary. I think Clary into Dacos is the best combination, but we're waiting until I think Monday to get teams for this game here. So Davey, I think it'll probably be too late to get to that point before we lock something quality in. So that leaves me sort of stammering around a little bit. I think English is still in his form. It's just impossible to pass up. But after English, I would wait all the way until one of these two gun midfielders, whichever one you have. Clayton Oliver, the priority. Touk Miller, the backup. If you have neither Touk or Clary, I strongly would avoid the Laird. I would avoid Laird, and I would avoid Dawson. For a captain, I think they're a great VC if you don't believe in English over Darcy, which I understand. But as a straight captain, I don't love either Crows player. So it gets really difficult then as to who you spend on in the lead up to here. Or if you're not using either of those two, who you potentially could captain. Maybe if you don't have either these two midfielders, you don't trust the Crows boys, as I don't really this round. Nick Dacos waiting all the way until the Tuesday is a potential option. What I would look out for is, I know Caldwell and potentially someone like a Hobbs might do some sort of a role. One to look out for, but I genuinely think he's getting to the point where he's tag proof, and at the very least, if he's tagged, he still puts up a low ton, just with the quantity of disposals that he's getting. But Essendon don't strike me as someone who's going to be super taggy, especially, they've got Will Setterfield who sort of calls players in the midfield, but with the way that they've started the season, I'm not sure if they're going to go full-blown 2 or 3 taggers. They might just try and back their system a little bit more. So that leaves a lot to think about. I'm trying to think of who I might have missed immediately here. So I did discuss those 4. I discussed Lockie. I do like Lockie. Lockie's probably one of my favourite options, coming off a big 176 against GWS. And now against GWS, I think he's a very good option. Bontempelli, if you have Jeremy Cameron, maybe not this week. I know there's only 10% of people who own him, but he's going to be an incredible captaincy option in the coming weeks. Besides that, you know what? Sheasel against Gold Coast isn't even that bad of an option. Where is he? He's here as well. If you could VC Sheasel into a Clary, I don't even hate that as an option. But I think a lot of people are going to be a little bit stuck for vice captaincies that late in the round. I think my final ruling, it's definitely not going to be down here, the further down we go. I know Parrish is a medal winner, but if you looked at his season so far, the inconsistency makes your skin crawl as a potential captain. So only one score, 120 plus, and 2 sub-tons. Absolutely not a captaincy option this week. I know he's a medal winner. He's an Anzac Day specialist, but not for me. He's not Dane Swan. So yeah, I think finally doing everything you can to wait out until Clary plays, if you're an owner, is going to be huge. I really do believe in a 130 plus from Clary as a bit of a guarantee. So if that means you play riskier with your vice captaincy option, try to catch lightning in a bottle, I absolutely can justify that. If I had a Jeremy Cameron type, I would actually use that this week, even though it's against Sydney, who have a depleted backline. I would use that to sort of catch that 150 or roll onto Clary. I have a lot of confidence in Clary this week. Alternatively, if I had Dawson and I was using as a VC, I'd be absolutely fine with that if I was rolling into Clary. Dawson into Clary, I think, should be popular. And then either Bulldog against Fremantle, who are struggling at the moment, into Clary, I think, is going to be popular as well. And I'm saying into Clary a lot, into Took as well, if you don't have Clayton Olivet and do have Took Miller. So I think, and Dacos if you have neither, which I think is very tough. That's going to wrap it up for me. Now, my question of the day is, of course, who did I forget? Who did you captain and vice captain last week? Did you go with or against my advice? I love hearing the stories about people. JB, I know you suggested this guy, but I went with this guy instead, and he got 170. I don't think I mentioned Lachie Neale in last week's video, so if you did vice captain Lachie Neale, that's huge by you. Well done. I do appreciate everyone for watching. If you did enjoy, please go check out some of our other content that you might like. Links will be up on the screen if the editor boy Chizo gets onto it. And of course, you can support us by visiting our Patreon or our merch store. Thank you very much for joining me again, and I'll see you at the next Dr. SuperCoach Import.